The elevator maintenance log: buildings have systems, climate control, fire suppression, elevators that move people between floors according to predictable schedules. Most of these systems operate within documented parameters. Maintenance logs track every inspection, every repair, every anomaly. But some logs document stops that shouldn't exist, floors that appear between numbered levels, passengers who exit and never return. Tonight's file comes from a downtown office tower. 20 stories of glass and steel, 5 elevators servicing standard floors, and one maintenance log describing a 6th elevator that stops at places not on the building plans. This is the elevator maintenance log. The files never close. The darkness never forgets. Ryan Torres had been working for Metropolitan Elevator Services for 8 years. Commercial maintenance contracts, mostly office buildings and hospitals. The work was routine. Scheduled inspections every 90 days, emergency calls when systems malfunctioned, occasional modernization projects. In November 2024, he received a service request for the Bridgewater Tower downtown. Elevator E experiencing intermittent malfunctions, passengers reporting unusual stops and delays. The building manager wanted a full diagnostic and repair estimate. The Bridgewater Tower was a 20-story structure built in 1987. 5 passenger elevators labeled A through E, all original equipment from the construction period. Elevator E served floors 1 through 20, with mechanical equipment housed in a penthouse above the top floor. Standard configuration, nothing unusual in the building specs. Ryan arrived on a Tuesday morning with his diagnostic equipment and toolkit. The building manager, a woman named Patricia Voss, met him in the lobby. Elevator E has been problematic for about 6 weeks, she explained as they walked to the elevator bank. Passengers complain it stops between floors, sometimes for just a few seconds, sometimes for minutes. We've had 3 people get stuck in the past month. Ryan made notes. Any patterns? Specific times of day? Specific floors? Patricia shook her head. Seems random, but always between 12 and 13. Never below 12, never above 13. That was unusual. Most elevator issues involve doors, cables, or control systems. Problems isolated to a specific floor range suggested something structural in the shaft itself. Ryan rode elevator E to the 12th floor, then back down. The ride was smooth, no unusual sounds or vibrations. He tried it again, this time pressing 13. The elevator rose normally, passing 12. The floor indicator showed the transition from 12 to 13. But for a moment, just a fraction of a second, the display flickered. A brief image of something between the numbers. Not quite 1212, something else. The elevator reached 13 without incident. Ryan stepped out and examined the hallway. Standard office floor, conference rooms, copy machines, nothing remarkable. He returned to the elevator and rode it down to the sub-basement where the elevator machinery room was located. The space was cramped and hot, filled with motors, pulleys, and control panels for all 5 elevators. Elevator E's equipment looked standard. Original 1987 installation, well maintained but showing age. He checked the maintenance log, a thick binder kept on a metal shelf near the control panels. The most recent entries were routine. Monthly inspections, minor repairs, oil changes for the hydraulic systems. But flipping back through older entries revealed something odd. An entry from September 2024 described a service call. Elevator E reported stuck between floors. Technician responded. Found elevator stopped with doors closed. Position indicator showed location between 12 and 13. Attempted manual override. Elevator resumed normal operation after 15 minutes. No mechanical fault identified. The entry was signed by a technician named Howard Klein. Ryan recognized the name. Howard had worked for Metropolitan for over 20 years before retiring in October. Ryan pulled out his phone and called the office. "Can you get me Howard Klein's contact info? I need to ask him about a service call." 20 minutes later, he was on the phone with Howard. "Bridgewater Tower, elevator E." "Yeah, I remember that one," Howard said. His voice sounded tired. "Strangest call I ever worked. Elevator was stopped between floors, but the shaft position didn't match what the indicator showed." Ryan asked what that meant. "The elevator was physically between 12 and 13, right? But when I checked the shaft with a flashlight, it looked like it was stopped at a landing, like there was a floor there. But there isn't a floor between 12 and 13. Building only has 20 floors, no intermediate levels." Ryan pressed for details. "Could it have been a shadow? Trick of the light?" Howard hesitated. "I don't know what it was, but I saw doors, elevator doors on the shaft wall, at a level that doesn't exist. I marked it in the log as a visual anomaly. Didn't know what else to write." Ryan thanked him and hung up. He returned to the maintenance log and flipped through more pages. Other entries mentioned similar issues. Elevator stops between 12 and 13. Passengers reporting the doors opening briefly at an unmarked floor. One entry from July 2024 included a handwritten note in the margin. Passenger exited at intermediate stop. Did not return to building. Security unable to locate. He found Patricia Voss in her office on the 3rd floor. "Has anyone gone missing from this building?" She looked surprised by the question. "Missing? What do you mean?" Ryan showed her the log entry. She read it slowly, frowning. "I don't remember this, but I only started here in August. Let me check with security." She made a call, spoke briefly, then hung up. "Security says they have a report from July about a tenant who didn't return from lunch. Woman named Sandra Levin worked for a law firm on 17. She was seen entering elevator E, never came out. Building was searched. She wasn't found. Police investigated but had no leads. Eventually classified as a voluntary missing person case." Ryan felt cold despite the warmth of the office. "Show me the security footage from that day." They went to the security office in the basement. The guard on duty pulled up archived footage from July 22, 2024. The camera covering the elevator bank showed Sandra Levin entering elevator E at 12:47 p.m. The doors closed. The floor indicator above the elevator showed it rising. It reached 12. Then the indicator went dark for approximately 4 seconds. When it lit up again, it showed 13. The elevator continued to 20, then descended. When it returned to the lobby and the doors opened, Sandra Levin was not inside. The elevator was empty. They watched the footage 3 more times. Same result. She entered. The indicator went dark between 12 and 13. She never exited. "Where did she go?" Patricia asked. Ryan had no answer. He returned to elevator E with his equipment. This time he installed a portable camera inside the cab, positioned to record both the interior and the floor indicator. He rode the elevator repeatedly, cycling between floors 1 and 20. On the 7th trip it happened. The elevator reached 12 and continued rising. The floor indicator displayed 12, then went dark. The elevator continued moving for approximately 3 seconds. Then it stopped. The doors opened. Ryan's breath caught. Beyond the doors was a hallway. Not the 13th floor. Something else. The walls were the same institutional beige as the rest of the building, but the lighting was wrong. Dimmer, flickering slightly, and the hallway extended in both directions farther than it should. The building's floor plate wasn't large enough to accommodate corridors that long. The elevator door stayed open for perhaps 5 seconds. Ryan stood frozen, staring. He could see office doors lining the hallway. Numbered doors. 13-1201, 13-1202, 13-1203, but no people, no movement, just the empty hallway and the flickering lights. Then the doors closed. The elevator resumed rising. The indicator lit up again, showing 13. The elevator reached the floor normally. When the doors opened, it was the standard 13th floor, the floor he'd seen minutes earlier. Nothing unusual. Ryan rode the elevator back down to the lobby, his hands shaking. He reviewed the footage from the portable camera. The recording showed exactly what he'd experienced. The elevator stopping, the doors opening, the hallway with numbered doors, all of it captured on video, time-stamped, documented. He saved the file to his laptop and called his supervisor. "I need to report something unusual about the Bridgewater job." His supervisor listened to the description, then went silent for a long moment. "Document everything. Don't go back in that elevator alone. I'm sending backup." 2 hours later, another technician arrived. Luis Garza, a senior engineer with 15 years' experience. Ryan showed him the footage and the maintenance log entries. Luis examined the elevator machinery in the sub-basement, checking the control systems and shaft positioning sensors. "Everything reads normal," he said, "but the position encoder shows a discrepancy. When the elevator is between 12 and 13, there's a gap in the data, like the system loses track of the cab for a few seconds." He pointed to a printout. "See this? The elevator's position drops off the sensors, then reappears. During that gap, the system doesn't know where the cab is." They decided to ride the elevator together. Ryan operated the controls while Luis monitored the diagnostic equipment. They cycled through floors, waiting for the anomaly to occur. On the 4th attempt, the elevator stopped between 12 and 13. The doors opened. The same hallway appeared. This time, Luis saw it too. "What floor is this?" he whispered. Ryan shook his head. "It doesn't exist, but it's there." The doors remained open longer this time, perhaps 10 seconds, and at the far end of the hallway, a figure appeared, distant, indistinct, walking slowly toward the elevator. Luis hit the door close button repeatedly. The doors didn't respond. The figure continued approaching, close enough now to see details. A woman, business attire. She walked with purpose, her footsteps making no sound. Luis reached for the emergency stop button. Before he could press it, the doors closed. The elevator resumed movement. When they reached the lobby, both men exited immediately. Luis's face was pale. "That woman," he said. "Did you see her face?" Ryan had, and he recognized her from the security footage. Sandra Levin, the woman who disappeared in July. They reported their findings to Patricia Voss. She listened with growing concern, then made a decision. "Elevator E needs to be taken out of service immediately. We'll post it as under maintenance until this is resolved." She paused. "But what do I tell people? That we have an elevator that stops at a floor that doesn't exist?" Ryan suggested bringing in a building inspector, someone with authority to examine the structure itself, not just the elevator systems. Maybe there was something in the original construction, a design flaw, a hidden level. The inspector arrived the following day. A man named Gerald Marsh, who'd been reviewing building code compliance for 30 years, examined the architectural plans for Bridgewater Tower. 20 floors, he confirmed. 12 is commercial office space, 13 is the same, no intermediate levels, no mechanical floors between them. But when he measured the building's exterior, he found a discrepancy. The height between the 12th and 13th floors was 14 feet. Standard floor-to-floor height for the building was 12 feet. There were 2 extra feet of space unaccounted for in the plans. Could be a plenum space, Gerald suggested, mechanical ductwork, structural support, but it's unusual to have that much clearance without documentation. He requested access to the original construction documents from 1987. The building owner provided archived files from storage, blueprints, permits, inspection reports, and buried in the construction logs, a note from the structural engineer. Floor 12.5 sealed per owner request. No access from passenger elevators. The note was dated March 1987, during the building's construction phase. Floor 12.5, an intermediate level, built and then sealed. But why? And what was on it? Gerald found another document, an inspection report from April 1987. The report mentioned a partial floor installed between 12 and 13 for equipment storage, but a handwritten note in the margin stated, "Space unusable. Recommend abandonment." Subsequent construction sealed the level. Elevator shafts modified to bypass. No explanation for why the space was deemed unusable, just the notation and a set of initials. Ryan asked the obvious question. If the floor was sealed, how is Elevator E accessing it? Gerald examined the elevator shaft diagrams. The modification was done to elevators A through D. Their rails bypassed the intermediate level, but Elevator E's shaft was left original. The floor is still there, and apparently still accessible. He looked at Ryan. "You're saying people have gotten off at that floor?" Ryan nodded. "At least one person, maybe more." Gerald closed the file folder. "Then we need to find a way to access 12.5 from the outside. If people are going in, we need to know what's happening to them." Access proved difficult. The floor had been sealed by welding steel plates over the elevator door openings in the shaft. Only Elevator E, due to its original configuration, could open doors at that level. The building's stairwells didn't include a landing for 12.5. The floor existed in a kind of architectural limbo, present in the structure but isolated from normal access points. Gerald proposed using Elevator E itself. "We ride it, wait for it to stop at 12.5, and when the doors open, we go in." Ryan felt his stomach tighten. "And if the doors close while we're inside?" Gerald had no answer. They prepared carefully. Flashlights, radios, a pry bar in case they needed to force elevator doors from the inside. They informed Patricia and the building security team. If they didn't return within 30 minutes, security would call emergency services. Ryan and Gerald entered Elevator E at 2:01 p.m. The elevator was posted as out of service, ensuring no other passengers would interfere. They pressed 20, letting the elevator rise through the floors. 12 approached. Both men watched the floor indicator. It reached 12, continued rising, then went dark. The elevator slowed, stopped. The doors opened. The hallway appeared exactly as Ryan had seen before. Flickering lights, numbered doors, the same beige walls extending far beyond what the building's dimensions should allow. Gerald stepped out first. Ryan followed, keeping 1 foot between the elevator doors to prevent them from closing. The hallway was silent. No air circulation sounds, no background hum of HVAC systems, just silence and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. They moved down the hallway cautiously. The first door, labeled 131201, was closed. Gerald tried the handle. Locked. They continued to 131202. Also locked. 131203, the same. But 131204 was different. The door was slightly ajar. Light spilled from the gap. Gerald pushed it open slowly. Inside was an office, a desk, filing cabinets, a computer from the late 1980s, monitor dark, papers scattered across the desk, and sitting in the chair, facing away from the door, a figure, motionless. "Hello?" Gerald called. The figure didn't respond. Ryan's radio crackled with static. No signal. They approached the desk slowly. The figure was a man, dressed in a business suit. His hands rested on the desk surface, his head tilted slightly forward as if sleeping. Gerald reached out and touched the man's shoulder. The man's head turned. His eyes were open, but unfocused, staring at nothing. "Sir?" Gerald said. "Can you hear me?" The man's mouth moved slightly, a whisper, barely audible. "Still working." They backed away from the office and returned to the hallway. More doors lined the corridor, some closed, some ajar. Through one open door, Ryan saw a conference room, a table surrounded by chairs, and seated in the chairs, 6 people, all motionless, all staring at the table surface, papers in front of them, pens in their hands, frozen mid-meeting. Ryan grabbed Gerald's arm. "We need to leave, now." They moved quickly back toward where the elevator should be, but the elevator was gone. The hallway extended in both directions. No break in the walls, no elevator doors. Just the endless corridor with its numbered doors and flickering lights. Gerald pulled out his radio. Only static. He tried his cell phone. No signal. "Where's the elevator?" Ryan asked. Gerald shook his head. "I don't know. It was right here." They walked in the direction they'd come from. Past the offices, past the conference room. The hallway seemed to stretch longer with each step. New doors appearing. 131215, 131216, numbers increasing, but no elevator. Ryan checked his watch. 2:17 p.m. They'd been on the floor for 17 minutes. If they didn't return soon, security would initiate emergency protocols. But without the elevator, how could they leave? They tried doors, looking for stairs, an exit, anything. Most doors were locked. Those that opened revealed more offices, more frozen figures, people sitting at desks, standing by filing cabinets, all motionless, all aware in some terrible way but unable to move or speak beyond whispers. Then Ryan heard something, a distant sound, mechanical, the elevator. He ran toward the sound, Gerald following. The hallway curved, impossible given the building's rectilinear structure, but it curved, and around the bend, the elevator doors appeared, open, waiting. They sprinted to the elevator and dove inside. Ryan hit the door close button repeatedly. The doors began to slide shut, and through the narrowing gap, he saw them, the figures from the offices, emerging into the hallway, dozens of them, walking slowly toward the elevator, silent, expressionless. Sandra Levin was among them. The doors closed, the elevator dropped, the floor indicator lit up showing 13. The elevator descended normally. When it reached the lobby, Ryan and Gerald stumbled out. Security guards and Patricia rushed to them. "You were gone for 47 minutes, Patricia said. "We were about to call fire rescue." Ryan checked his watch. 2:47 p.m. It had felt shorter, much shorter, but the timestamp didn't lie. They'd lost time, or time had moved differently on 12.5. Gerald reported his findings to the building owner. The recommendation was clear. Elevator E must be permanently disabled and sealed. The intermediate floor posed an unknown hazard. The cause of the anomalies remained unexplained, but the risk was undeniable. Modification work began within a week. Elevator E's machinery was disconnected. The shaft was sealed at multiple points with steel barriers. The elevator car itself was locked in position on the first floor. Doors welded shut. Warning signs posted. No access. But the maintenance log continues, because other elevators in other buildings sometimes stop at places they shouldn't. Passengers report missing floors, intermediate levels that appear between numbered stops, and occasionally someone exits at these levels. They see office doors. They see hallways extending beyond reasonable dimensions. Some return, most don't. Security footage shows them entering elevators and never emerging. Building searches find no trace. In the Bridgewater Tower, Elevator E remains sealed. But late at night, security guards report hearing sounds in the shaft. Movement. The whir of machinery that shouldn't be operational. And sometimes, when the building is empty, the floor indicator above Elevator E lights up, cycling through numbers, 1 through 12, then a flicker. A brief moment where the display shows something between 12 and 13. Then the indicator goes dark, and the sounds in the shaft grow quiet, waiting for the next time someone presses a button and expects the elevator to follow its scheduled path. But some elevators don't follow schedules. Some stops aren't on any building plans, and some floors, once entered, don't let you leave. This has been the elevator maintenance log. The files never close. The darkness never forgets.